Welcome to Bobcat Tracks. I'm Mike Schulze, Luke Steiner, guest host, first time on the podcast too. Jake Romana never wanted to have you on the podcast. We had to get rid of him to have you on. I don't know why. You might know him, our head men's basketball coach, Jeff Boals. So, Jeff, thanks for guest hosting today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Must have ran out of people to guest host, but Bob for the sixth time. So I'm first time caller, long time listener.
Yeah, no, we really do appreciate it, and so we're gonna do our normal thing here with Jeff, and then our guest is one of Jeff's teammates, Tony Brook, head men's basketball coach, Geno Ford. So Jeff and Geno are close friends. They kept it PG for us, which we appreciate.
Yeah, very, very much
appreciated. Luke does. That makes Luke's job a lot easier. But before we get to Geno, let's talk a little Bobcat athletics, shall we?
Yeah.
What sport you want to start with, Luke?
I mean, I think I want to start with football just because that was last night, but I feel like we should go back to the weekend before just because,
Yeah, let's start with swimming.
Yeah.
Swimming beat Miami. They dominated Miami, 177.5 to 122.5. Jeff, you were there. Electric atmosphere. And that was our first win over Miami in a dual meet since 2011.
Yeah.
And they got the break.
Dominant win, like you said. I think, obviously I follow swimming pretty good. My daughter's a swimmer.
Yeah.
And pacing really well, and some of the girls on his team. And, I think the depth that they have, just the not only the first and second, third, but just the depth that they have on their team is very evident this year. And, I think it wasn't even close. And it was fun atmosphere, like you mentioned, and obviously great to see women's soccer come over with the brick and pass that thing over to them. Just, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to Mason on Sunday at the soccer game the next day, and what I thought was actually kind of weird is they don't have to play Miami. Like, if he wants to have Miami, it's every other year. The MAC doesn't require them to play Miami and swimming every year. It's every other year. So Miami will come to Ohio next in 4 years.
Yeah, that's nuts. Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then while swimming was beating Miami, our cross country teams were competing, and our women also beat Miami, but they finished second overall. And we had a freshman of the year, Luke.
Yeah. Cross country, second in the MAC championships, which I got to give a shout out to Gavin and everyone in the operations hosting that at the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So great job to them. I know I'm going to butcher Layla's name.
Layla Bucedra.
Yeah. So
second fastest time in school history, 20:44.2. She finished 12th. That was the best freshman finish at cross and at the MAC cross country event, and she finished 12th, and that got her freshman of the year. And she was also second team All MAC. So I mean, that's a heck of a start for a freshman. Yep. Jeff, I have to ask you, 6 kilometers. How long are you running it?
I'm one of those guys with a sticker in their car 0.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever 26.1?
Yeah, 13.1. Yeah.
But I met Layla's mom at homecoming.
And
what a cool story. About her being a field hockey player and never really running before, and she's had an awesome year, and I think Sarah's done a phenomenal job just changing the mindset of everything, and I think they had their highest regional ranking in maybe ever.
Yep.
Heading into and fun to watch their success.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting for Sarah to have somebody like Layla who really focused on field hockey in high school, and she's already as a freshman competing at this high of a level. I mean, the sky has to be a limit for her now that she is switching her focus to running.
Crazy to think that someone can run a 6K in 20 minutes without running their entire life. I couldn't run a 6K in 20 minutes ever, so
it's nuts.
Yeah,
that's nuts. And then you want to talk a little volleyball?
Yeah, volleyball swept the weekend. One of the weird weekends in the MAC where you play 2 separate opponents. Played Western on Friday, won 3-1, and then Northern on Saturday, and I believe swept completely 3-0.
Yep. Yeah. So they control their own destiny to win the league right now, which is awesome to see. They've got 2 big ones against Ball State coming up. Ball State is is atop the league.
Mm-hmm.
So that weekend will really decide the MAC.
Yeah. Sam Steele as well. Got to give a shout out to her 1,000 career digs. I want to say it was Friday night, but she was honored Saturday night for that accomplishment.
Yeah. Let's talk some football.
Yeah, the big one last night.
Yeah, 45-24 win over Buffalo. Ohio controls their destiny to win the MAC East and go to the MAC championship in Detroit. The offense, Curtis Rourke is the real deal.
Yeah, that's the first thing Jeff said to us this morning.
Yeah, Jeff. What do you think of Curtis's performance last night?
Yeah, I mean he was phenomenal, and Sam coming down from Ohio State and doing what he's doing, like he just that guy's got like stick him on his hands or something, like he just catches, and those two have obviously great chemistry. But I think if you see what Tim's done with his team, they battled a lot of injuries, throughout the season so far, and to start off the way they did, to play those two Power Fives to where they're at now, they're just continue getting better and better and better, and performing at the highest level at the right time. And I know they got a few weeks left, and I'm excited to watch what they end up doing.
Yeah, Jeff. You mentioned the injuries. C.A. Bangura didn't play last night. Didn't have a scholarship running back. Well, Julian Ross did come back.
Yeah, talk about a blast of the past. Jake Netherton was the leading rusher for Ohio.
Yeah, Jake Netherton was not on the team 7 weeks ago. He's a sixth year who had one more year. He decided that he was a walk-on. He had played 4 years. He decided that he wanted to be a regular student for his last year. The injury bug bit us, and we called him up, got him back, and he scored a touchdown last night and was our leading rusher. I mean, It's an awesome story. And you want to talk about it? What was that?
Hey, imagine getting that phone call. Oh. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah. We got Penn State next week. You ready? Yeah, it's nuts. And he was awesome last night. Curtis had 317 yards. Sam Wigless, 131, 6 touches. Tim joked in the press conference last night. He was mad that I'm mad at his staff because they didn't throw him the ball enough. Because he said double digits isn't enough. I mean they look really good, and they've got a big one now against Miami on the road. It's tough to play in Oxford on a Tuesday night. There will be 17 people there, so they're gonna have to get the boys ready. But I have some faith that they will.
Yeah.
And then looking ahead a little bit, we got basketball
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, oh man, that's crazy. So we got Capital here in the Convo, 7:00 tip, and then we start the men's season at Belmont. The women do not have an exhibition this year, a public exhibition anyway. They played Oakland and Youngstown State and their secret scrimmages that aren't so secret anymore. And then they open the season with Long Island here in the Convo at 7, the same time the men are playing. So if you come to that game, but you still want to watch the men, I will have it on my computer, and I will make sure you can sit next to me and watch the men play as you watch the women.
That's perfectly fair.
So Jeff, you looking forward to the exhibition?
Yeah, hard to believe it's November 2nd, and we scrimmaged Cincinnati. Bob's had a couple scrimmages, and they keep moving the start date up every year. Normally we play on that Saturday of Dad's weekend, which we always get a good crowd. And so normally not this weekend, but the following weekend would have been opening day.
Right.
Then they moved it to 8th, and then it's election day, and we're supposed to have that day off for student athletes. So they moved it up to the 7th. So that's why we're playing on a Thursday against Capital. And we have 9 new guys. Dwight Wilson hadn't played in a year, so it'll be good for our guys to get in front of people. Playing a real game on the combo board. I'm excited to see the growth of this team and the journey of where it takes us. But I love the group we have. We went to Spain in August, and they've been consistent. For probably 23 to 25 practices. The fun to be around, fun to go to work. Just a good group of guys.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
we asked Lamar about this earlier, but what did that Spain trip do for your team?
Yeah, I mean, those are always great. And, probably couldn't have been in a better time with all the new guys we have and what we had to put in. Because as a coach, you never feel like you have enough time, to put everything in. But we were able to practice 10 times, and then we played 3 games over there. Very competitive games against some professional players, ages 23 to 35. Very physical game, and more just the memories and the bonding off the court. Just the experiences of being in Barcelona, seeing FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, eating different foods, and just a phenomenal trip, memories of a lifetime.
Yeah. Before we get to Geno, I have one very important question. So, when are you going to schedule Stony Brook so Geno can come back?
My son always asks me that. He's like, "We got to schedule Stony Brook. Got to schedule Stony Brook." They're going into the CAA now, and it's a very competitive league, and he's got his hands full, so he's trying to schedule the right way for his team. He's got a lot of new guys as well, but scheduling is difficult. It's a process where you and I both might need a game, but you need a home game. I need a home game. Okay, go to the next team. Okay, we can play on the road. What date do you have? November 12th. Well, we got a game on the 11th. Can't play on the 11th. Can you play on the 13th? Nope, can't play on the 13th. So there's it's a lot of times it's difficult. Especially when you're winning. It's a lot harder and more difficult to schedule. But
it's funny how that works.
I think, if I want to feel better about myself, I call Geno. He's like one of the funniest dudes you'll ever meet in your life. And he's always got something going on. So if I feel down and out, I call him. And after the conversation, I feel better about myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's awesome. So, should we go to the interview?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Geno Ford. Geno, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
No, it's great to be on. It's always good to see Bobcats, and it's good to hang out with my man Boals.
Yeah, you guys have met once or twice. So, Jeff, we appreciate Jeff's our guest host this week. So we appreciate you, Jeff, for getting a great guest. So should we start with the preseason NIT?
I think that's the easiest place to
start.
Luke
Luke and I were talking about the preseason NIT 94. At Ohio State and at Virginia on the road. I got the ball. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So before we talk about Madison Square Garden, what was it like to go to Ohio State and go to Virginia back-to-back nights and get wins to start the year? That's a tough way to start the non-conference season, huh?
Yeah, back-to-back for first 2 games, let alone at Ohio State and Virginia.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the only team ever to go on the road the first 2 games and win the whole thing. Wow. And probably the 2 biggest memories, obviously going up to Ohio State, winning in St. John Arena was awesome. But we played at Virginia, and Geno could probably tell this story better than I could. The night before we played them, you want to tell this story?
I mean, I remember it pretty vividly. So we had beat Ohio State, and we all, listen, we all wanted to win that game, and it wasn't very competitive. I didn't play well. I'm sure a couple other guys probably didn't play well, and we beat them double figures, and we're up big.
I had 14 points.
I didn't say you didn't play well. I just said a couple guys. But anyway, we play Ohio State, and we go to Virginia immediately. And the biggest things I remember is Coach Hunter taught a concepts of basketball coaching class. And it might have been the most miserable academic thing you could have to do. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was studying more for that than I was my philosophy final. It was sick. And he made us get up because we had like a 8 a.m. flight to get to Charlottesville. Not shocking. The department wasn't organized. I don't know that they trusted we would win and be heading on to Charlotte. So they're Charlottesville. So they booked the tickets. I'm up at 6:30 in the morning, along with Curtis Simmons taking coaching a basketball final. It was ridiculous. And then we go to the airport and we go down and we have practice, and then we play the next night. And I am dead asleep, and I hear the banging on my door, my hotel door, at 12:30, 1 in the morning. And I mean, I'm out of it. And my roommate's Jason Terry, and JT's out of it when he's awake. So you can imagine him at 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
So he and I are both like, what is going on? We thought somebody's screwing around. We're wanting to, tell him to shut the heck up. We open the door. It's Jerry Searles, our manager. And he says, hey, coach wants everybody to come to his room. Like, what is going on? So we go up to his room. It's 1 a.m. He starts showing film. He goes around the horn, and I have no idea what he said to anyone else, but I do remember how he told me, I wish we had Doug Etzler and not you. I wish we had Doug Etzler. You're terrible. I don't know why.
He went one by one right down the line, just obliterating every individual.
So, hey, if Jeff and I did that today, we'd have to have our whole teams in therapy. The guys were, he just crushed every guy. And I remember getting on the elevator after he let us leave. And we were in there for an hour. And Gus Johnson and I made an agreement that we were going to not only beat Virginia, but we were not high-fiving or hugging Coach Hunter after the game. We were protesting. And we, of course, won, and he and I both were over there hugging on Coach. But he had us ready to play. But that team meeting was one that I distinctly remember. He crushed every guy. It was he had us ready to play. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely a memory. And we went on to Madison Square Garden and played. And I think I took a medical terminology final at some point on that trip because we were in finals during that time. And we go to Madison Square Garden, and just awesome to be able to be in there. And I remember our locker room was down by the training room, and the Knicks locker room was right there. And I kind of snuck in there, and Anthony Mason's jersey was sitting right there. And some security guy came in and kicked me out of there. But I remember Geno, it was chocolate fudge Sundays, man. I think you spent your per diem on only eating chocolate fudge Sundays. But we went in there, and Gary Trent had probably one of the most memorable games in a big time setting. I think he was like 12 for 12 from the field, like 10 for 10 from the foul line. Ended up with like 33 points and 20 some rebounds in the championship game. On that type of stage, it was just a really cool moment for us as players. And I still think we need to hang that banner somewhere. That banner was never hung. Preseason NIT champions. Need to work on that.
If we knew somebody that worked there, maybe we could get that done. But
I
also want to, just in case Gary would see this, I want to make sure that everyone knows he barely missed a triple-double because he had 9 turnovers against the 1-3-1 also. Just make sure that's out there. But what he did against New Mexico State was incredible.
So Scholz, I had to take a
building?
What's that?
That banner in the building right now?
I don't even know if they ever had one. I know at some point the powers of be didn't want to put it up because it was a preseason championship. But back then the preseason NIT was like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the tournament.
Yeah.
And I remember we ended up winning, and we go to the airport, and Curtis and Gary were late for the bus, so Coach Hunter left them. We're like, there are 2 of our top 5 best players, right? And he just leaves them at the hotel, and they had to get their own cab back to the airport. And, again, nowadays you probably get fired for something like that. But I had to take a organic chemistry final when I got back. No, check that, neuroanatomy final. And it was 60 questions. And I was supposed to study on this trip, and we won it, and we were up all night, celebrating. And I ended up guessing on 56 of the 60 questions, and went from like a solid B plus to a solid C on the final grade on that one, but it was worth it.
I think it would be.
So this question is actually for both of you. We talked a little bit about Gary Trent, but what was it like to have a NBA player, as a teammate, and what did it do for your careers on the court?
Well, I think he's one of the best, if not the player ever to play in the MAC. I mean, he was so dominant. And if you look at his numbers, he left after 3 years. He was player of the year, freshman, sophomore, junior year. Today's world, I don't know if he makes it, with social media and everything, with what he went through. Like I always tell people, he shouldn't have been alive, like with what he was, how he was brought up and raised and what he was doing. And, he came in here and completely changed the complexion of the program. You knew he was special. He was just so raw, athletic, physical, very little skill when he got here. And, I had probably the easiest job of anybody. All I had to do was throw it over top of my guy in between another guy to about 10.5 feet up in the air. And all he did was jump up and get it and put it in. But he was a special player. And, he left early, got drafted in the lottery, played 9 years in the NBA, and just a phenomenal player.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with everything Jeff said. And I would say, as a point guard, Jeff bailed me out. If it wasn't for Jeff Boals my freshman year, I don't know if I would have played because of all the screens he had to set at half court to get my guy the heck off me. So I never played point guard in high school. I played the two. And then I got to college, and something about being a 5'7" two guard they didn't think would be a good idea. So they put me at the point. And then they realized I can't play point, and they moved me to the two when I was a junior. But anyhow, Gary was one of literally the only reason I got slapped in a huddle. Coach Hunter, we had a little stretch where we weren't scoring, and the other team is double and triple teaming Gary, and he called timeout, and he instituted the Gary Trent rule, which was you had to give him the second look. He said, if you look in there, Ford, and he isn't open, ball fake to the top and look again because you got to throw it. And he slapped my knee. I think the bruise is still there. I remember that timeout. And you know what? He was right. We started giving Gary the second look, and it paid off. And I think one thing that goes way under the radar here, really two things. One, Jeff was the perfect complement for Gary because Jeff liked to do the dirty stuff and the hard stuff and would be physical and would talk on defense and chesting cutters. I mean, he would today, the way they ref the games, I think Jeff would even agree, probably would have fouled out in the first 4 minutes. But back then it was so much more physical. You were allowed to use arm bars. You could chest cutters. And Jeff just took on all the physical responsibilities on the defensive end. And that really helped Gary. And I know Gary knows that. I mean, but as players, it's obvious when Jeff got hurt, late that year, we kind of fell apart because we just didn't have the physicality around the rim. But the second thing that kind of goes understated here is, in practice, when Gary got there, he not only had Jeff that he could use as a mentor, but he had Ryan Greenwood and Kevin Murphy that could be kind of dunk dummies for him. And he could just dunk on those guys repeatedly. And, the confidence that Ryan Greenwood and Kevin Murphy gave Gary on a daily basis was off the chart. I mean, you talk about just throw it in. If I throw it to you in practice, you take 2 crab dribbles and you dunk on a guy's head, just like a soul crushing dunk. And then you do it 6 more times that day. You do the locker room feeling pretty good. I liked watching it. So I give Murph and Tree, and boy, I hope they watch this. I don't know how to send the link, but I hope they see this. That's for sure.
Probably, those two couple years, we were 25-8, 24-10, and back then didn't play all the games we do now. And the best part about that team is, everybody knew their role, everybody accepted their role. We knew, Geno was a scorer. He'll be the first to tell you he had 1,750 career points here. Gary Trent was a scorer. I was a defender, screener. And, that was the best part about that team. And to this day, we have a text chain going on with 10 of us. And it's all day, every day, cracking on each other, making jokes, reunions, whatever it may be. It was a special team.
It's awesome.
I do have to bring something up, Jeff. I know you talked at the field hockey game last week that you vividly remember the hardest screen that you've ever set. And I want you to tell that story to Geno to see if he remembers it.
Geno could probably tell it. You remember it, Geno?
Oh, go ahead. I know where you're going. Go ahead. I'll listen.
So we're playing St. Mary's out in Stanford tournament. Were you even there?
No, I know, but I know the story.
Okay. So Gus Johnson was bringing the ball up. And I used to always to take the ball out of bounds and start jogging like I was running down the court, and half court I'd turn around and kind of blindside set a screen on whoever's guarding. And this defender was up in Gus Johnson like nobody's business, like just pressuring him and reach stepping and, just all up in him. So I circled back around, and there was a guy guard me named Jamoke Horton, big 6'9" dude, this monster, huge guy. He kept on running down the court. Well, when I turn around, like this, Gus is like speed dribbling up, and this guy's going full speed, reach stepping. And every time I'd set a screen, I would always kind of like lean into it to absorb the contact, just not to move. Sometimes I would, take a charge, but sometimes I'd want to rock the point guard defender. So I like leaned in, and this kid like hit me and like was parallel to the ground, like decleated him. And he just slammed down and the light laid there. And I thought the guy guarding me was going to, get in a fight with me. He was pissed off. And I'm like, you should be mad at yourself for not calling out the screen. And the kid got a concussion, knocked him out of the game. And it was one of the better ones I had.
And let me tell you, there were about 50 times. You're going to think I'm kidding. The contact on those was so violent. When I had the ball and if I was the guy that was involved, I would just speed dribble. I didn't have to do anything. I just go as fast as you can and make sure that my shoulder is going to get to Boals' hip. The collisions, I would hear bones. I mean, you'd hear cracking. And I know this. Every time I got the ball, the guy guarding me after one of those, they were spinning their neck around, looking, trying to find him. So there wasn't a lot of pressure against us during those years. Boals single-handedly helped me survive point guard. I'm not even kidding. I don't know. You got to realize too, when we played, now there's such a premium on ball skills and dribbling, and Steph Curry's made it fashionable. So whether it be Jeff's team or our team here, we got guys, man, they're doing 2-ball dribbling and behind the backs and all this stuff, man. We didn't do that, man. I crab dribbled and speed dribbled. I went fast and slow in my right hand, fast and slow in my left hand. That was the end of my dribbling series. So I needed my man Boals back there.
Shows it was always a very humbling experience when someone walks up to you, when you're walking around town or whatever, and they're like, man, you set the best screens I've ever seen. Not too many people get known for like being a screen setter, as opposed to a scorer, rebounder, or whatever. Very humbling.
And Coach Ford, he got that. Somebody said he was the best screen setter at a field hockey game last week. At a cheesy weenie food truck. So
yeah, I know it's probably better left said somewhere else, but it definitely is true. Definitely is true. I think the other thing though with Jeff is a player that, like, having played with him, he was a unbelievable passer. And he just kind of had feel for the game. He knew where the ball was going. I mean, he inbounded the ball on underneath out of bounds. And if there was a spot open, he would just kind of make eye contact, and I knew where to cut, and he would just thread the needle with passes, and obviously making post passes to Gary, who was double and triple teamed. I mean, we're joking about it, but it was not that easy. I mean, you did just need to get it in the air, and Gary could do the rest. But there's 4 bodies down there. There doesn't look like there's an airspace to throw it. And knowing that if you turn it over, Coach Hunter was not exactly very forgiving of turnovers. There was a lot. He could deal with some stuff, but not turnovers.
Speaking of Coach Hunter, both of you as head coaches now, what have you taken from your time playing for Coach Hunter into your current roles?
Yeah, I think both of us got into coaching, I think, because of Larry. I know I wouldn't have this job or even got into coaching without him. I want to be a physical therapist. We lost an assistant coach at the end of the year, and he asked me if I'd be interested in coaching, and I had no idea what it meant, what it entailed, and I'm like, sure. And actually, coached Geno for a year. I don't know if I coached him, but I was on the staff.
The only thing he encouraged me as the assistant. We played Eastern Michigan at home, and they were ranked in the top 25. We had shoot around at 1 o'clock. I had a 2 o'clock class. And I told him, I said, man, I want to get some shots up, but I got class. He was like, come on, man, these guys are top 25. So he was encouraging me to stay in the gym instead of get to class. But it was all right, man. He did a great job as an assistant. But go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, so he's why I got the job and started my career. I'm starting year 28 this year. And I know Geno worked with him for a long time as well. And it's funny when you coach, you take certain things from every coach you've been around, certain isms and things you would do and things you wouldn't do. And, I know we practice shorter and lighter because of my experiences playing for Coach Hunter. You know, we would practice 4 hours a day, like every day throughout the whole course of the year. And then on top of that, we'd have 3-hour study tables up at the libraries from 7 to 10 at night. And, you know, you talk about just all day, every day. But, you know, a lot of really good things, the toughness. And, you know, I'm sure Geno, in my mind, I hear the word compete 1 million times every time I'm thinking about doing something, because Larry was big on competing, very old school, you know, very, very tough on us. But, you know, we had a group of guys that could take it and handle it. And, you know, so a lot of what he did and how he coached us shapes who I become. Then you kind of evolve through the years. But, you know, I always say the one regret I had was getting this job was him not being here to see it, you know, just because he was such an integral part of me being, you know, who I am today.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Coach had a monstrous influence on my life. I mean, first off, he took a chance recruiting me. I mean, let's be honest. I wasn't a great player, but I was small, and you know that I had some options, but I didn't have 100 options. And I knew I wanted to play at Ohio. My dad was a high school coach, and this is a true story. So his high school team played in the districts in the combo against Lancaster. And they had a kid named Bo Reed that later played at University of Nebraska. His dad was the coach at Lancaster. And as a kid, I would have been about 8 years old. And I rode down to the game with my mom, 8 or 9, right in there. And we turned the corner getting off. And I've been gone from Athens so long, I forget it, Route 50 or whatever the heck it is. And got off the exit, and Peden didn't have the big press box that it has now. So as soon as you turned the corner, all you saw was the convo. And I mean, I was the best thing I ever saw in my life. I mean, I couldn't believe that that's where people got to play basketball. And we walked in, and the Hall of Fame pictures were up, and Mike Schmidt just kind of happened to be in the middle. And I knew who Mike Schmidt was. I didn't probably know another person, but I saw Mike Schmidt up there, and I thought, man, oh man, I this is where I want to play. And then later in life, to get recruited and get a chance to play there was a tremendous honor for me personally. That, like, there's the only place I wanted to go. I grew up, I rooted against Ohio State football as a kid. I'll root against them tomorrow. I hope they lose every game they play. They can't lose by enough. So, I give people a hard time. If you go to Ohio University, I don't want to see the Ohio State flag on your yard, man, on Saturdays. Get it down. Put the attack cat up, and let's get it. But anyway, back to Coach Hunter. Compete, that Jeff said, it's the number one thing that jumps out at me. His work ethic. When I was on his staff, it didn't matter what time I got there. 7 a.m., he was already there. 6:30, he's already there. He just stayed at the office some nights. And I had a young family. You would go home at 7 p.m. and you'd almost feel guilty going home at 7 p.m. because he isn't going home. He's still in the office. So I'm incapable of his work habits because he just never left. And there was probably some time in there that he wasn't getting anything done, but he was physically there. I just, the work ethic, the compete, and the loyalty that he had to his guys. If you are one of his guys, he would lay down in traffic for you, man. Like, he had some quirks personality wise. I wish he would have been alive when Jeff got the job. I honestly think he would have been like moved to tears because of how much he respected Jeff and liked Jeff. And I know that, Jeff being there is like an emotional thing for a lot of us because, it's how we came together as a group. It's how our friendships formed. And it's just pretty special that he's there. And he's done a great job. I mean, unbelievable job.
Yeah, one of the first things I did, because this office complex was being built right when I was leaving. And the same couch that was here when I was playing, I sat on that thing, got yelled at a few times. So one of the first things I did, I bought a new couch because I had like PTSD every time I looked at that thing.
That's funny.
Geno, I do have to bring one thing up, and I think Jeff knows this maybe a little bit as well. So for Miami games, our home games, we have a specific Beat Miami intro. and every single intro we've had has you in it getting fouled, coming on the scores table, like on a fast break, it looks like, because you got a steal or something.
Yeah.
And I, like, every single time we make sure that the Geno Ford getting fouled is in the video.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure
You're
to
getting absolutely hacked. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% a foul.
Yeah, look, I remember they had a shot to beat us and it missed. It was my senior year, and I was a long rebound that I ran down. I was trying to dribble the clock out and trying to not get touched so that we could get the heck out of there. But we had some unbelievable celebrations. I mean, I know that one. We had 3 of them at the end of the year, but that one, dribbling the clock out, like the students were on the court. It was, a huge deal. And I hate being this guy, right? But we all do. I remember when I was in college, I'd listen to somebody say, when I played. And I'd always think like, oh yeah, you guys, whatever, just like it's not relevant. But you got to realize that when Jeff and I were in the Mid-American Conference, how many NBA players there were. In the 94-95 season, you had 4 lottery picks in the 10-team league. You had Gary, you had Wally Zerbiak, you had Bonzi Wells, you had Antonio Daniels. You also had guys like Sadi Washington that played for the Utah Jazz for a couple of years, Derek Dials from Eastern Michigan that played for the Spurs, Earl Boykins, who played in the NBA for a long time, Huffman, the big center from Central Michigan, played with the Toronto Raptors. You just go through the league and you're like, Casey Shaw played for the Sixers. There were 10, 11 guys that played in the NBA. Now, I was not one of those, but there were a lot of great players. So when we were competing against people on a nightly basis, man, it was the best mid-major league in the country. I mean, you think about, just imagine the MAC now, if you were looking around and had 4 lottery picks and 11 future NBA guys, the talent was off the chart. And we found a way to win a bunch of games during that time. And I think it was just because of chemistry and knowing our roles, because we had Gary that was a difference maker, but Wally Zerbiak was a difference maker too. And so was Bonzi Wells, and so was Antonio Daniels. So, I think that we just kind of team wise, and Coach Hunter made sure there was no confusion as to what the hierarchy was in our locker room and what we were trying to accomplish.
So Scholz, my senior year, we were playing at Eastern Michigan. We were 16-4. I think we were both like either 11-0, 10-1 in the league, first place. And they played in Bowen Fieldhouse, which is the old indoor track. It was a real small, crappy place. And there was like 12 NBA scouts there. And I'm like, this is my chance. This is my chance. Obviously, they weren't there to see me. But that's when I tore my ACL for the 3rd time and ended my career in front of 12 NBA scouts. And I was on the floor for like 5 minutes. It felt like 50 minutes. Everyone telling me to get the F off the court and get up, you bum, and you're not hurt. But just a great team, special memories from that group.
Anything else? I don't do anything else.
Coach Boals, you got any questions for Coach here?
No, I think
that we can put on our podcast.
one of the best stories ever is when we played UConn. We went out to Hawaii, and we played Chaminade the first game, and they had a 3 in the air to beat us. And the next game, we're playing UConn, who's ranked probably top 10, top 12 in the country. They had 7 NBA guys on their team: Kevin Ollie, Deron Sheffer, Ray Allen, Donnie Marshall, Donyell Marshall, Travis Fair, Brian Knight, Travis Knight. So during that game, I was really the MVP of that game. We ended up winning. But I want Geno to tell the story of the shoot around and what happened during the game.
So Coach was less than thrilled with our performance against Chaminade, the D2 team. So we had a shoot around, and it wasn't at the University of Hawaii Hilo, which is where we were playing. It was an off-site gym. And so we practiced, and we went for an hour, and we did nothing but press offense the entire time because we knew UConn was going to press. So UConn shows up, and now it's 1 o'clock, and we're supposed to be off the court. So Coach isn't done with us. We went outside in 80, 85 degree heat on a tennis court that had a tennis net. So we were pressing and having to beat the press, and only like 3 of us could be on one side of the net and the other 2 were down there. And we'd turn it over or something, and he would just lose his mind. But that went for 15 minutes. Some guy driving by in a pickup truck yells out, "Hey, there's a gym over here." And Coach Hunter's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, there's a gym down here." So we all load up back on the bus, go about a mile down the road to this barn that had a gym with fan backboards in it. And we did another hour of press offense. The game it's so bizarre. I never forget this.
I'm thinking like we're about to get crushed. Like
Killed.
we literally hour and a half. We're going like full go. Playing.
Can't move. Exhausted. Day after a game. We're all beat up. We were in the locker room. You could have heard a pin drop. There's not a word being said. Coach Hunter hasn't come in to address the team yet. And Mike Reese turns to me and goes, "Yo, dog, who we play?" Like we didn't have any idea we were playing. And a couple of us laughed, and it kind of lightened the mood. And Coach came in. So now the game's going, and we get off to an unbelievable start. We got the lead, and we're making threes, and we're handling the press. And Donnie Marshall, who's, big, strong guy, and Jeff kind of get tangled up a couple times. And Jeff was never one to back down from a little physicality. So there's a free throw. Shot goes in. Jeff and him get tangled, and Boals shoves him as hard as he can in the back as we're running up the court, kind of on the side. It wasn't in the back. Back sounds like it was a dirty play. I mean, the whole thing was dirty. Like Danielle's cheap shot and Jeff's cheap shot and Danielle. It wasn't. So Boalsy chucks him, and Danielle Marshall takes a step, and I'm 2 feet from it. He plants his feet, and he raises an elbow and catches Boals in the face with one of the dirtiest elbows you'd ever see. And Boals goes down like he got shot. I mean, he's done. He's on the court. He's out of it. They stop the game. They eject Donnie Marshall. They eject Boals. But Boals is getting smelling salts from Skip Vossler, our trainer. So he has no idea he's been ejected. He's laying on the ground. He's totally out of it. They get him kind of back to where he knows what day it is. We help him off the floor. He goes and sits on the bench. And, listen, there's a couple things like, hey, Boals is not perfect, but one thing you would never accuse Boals of is not being tough. So after about 2 minutes on the bench, Boalsy's down there, and he's kind of knows what's going on, and he yells up, "Coach, I'm good." He wanted to go back in the game. He had no idea he'd been tossed. So he got an All-American tossed. And I'll tell you what, we beat those guys, and it was non-competitive. Most of the second half, it was almost 20. But Boalsy got a big MVP vote on that one. That was for sure.
Yeah, so you guys do the math. I averaged 6 points a game. Donnie Marshall averaged 16. We both got ejected, and we won by 9. Who was the real MVP?
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's awesome.
Well, anything else? Yeah,
Coach, we really appreciate you coming on. Jeff does too, I'm sure. Thanks for keeping it PG too, so we don't lose our job. So
no problem. No editing needed, man. No, I appreciate you having me. It's awesome. Looking forward to following the Cats again this year. Have a great season.
Right. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah,
appreciate it,
guys.